Every place carries questions. Questions written in its landscapes, its languages, its archives, and even its silences. Across the Southern Hemisphere, our stories have been shaped by trade routes and migration, struggle and imagination, and decisions made generations before we even arrived. The Southern Question is a podcast about curiosity. Together with leaders, historians, and citizens, we explore the forces that shaped our past, the tensions that shape our present, the possibilities that shape our future. This is where history lives. This is where history speaks. And this is where we begin. I'm Jolene Martin, and I'll be asking the Southern Question. With us in conversation is Venete Klein, a seasoned non-executive director with extensive experience in the financial and banking sectors. She has completed a number of executive development programs at Harvard, INSEAD, IMD, and MIT, and serves across strategic boards shaping governance, capital, and institutional leadership. Joining her is Calvyn Gilfellan, CEO of the Castle of Good Hope, steward of this living archive of Cape history. This is where history lives, this is where history speaks, and this is where we begin. Venete, Calvyn, welcome to the Southern Question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being part of this first episode. It means a lot. Calvyn, we are in a very special room. Thank you for allowing us to film at the castle. Please tell us about this room. What is this place?
Oh, where do I start? Other than to say that the person of whom this room is named is the first person of color who governed this castle. I'm only the second. But no connection to Van der Stel. So this is the Van der Stel room, and it's a breakaway room for people when they have meetings here. During the time of the army that was based here, they would use this to host the generals and the colonels, and they would have briefing meetings here. But for me, significant for today's topic, the opening episode, is that this was probably the base of the army when 76 broke out in Cape Town in September 76. So the historic connections and significance of this room is so big. I don't know, that's why I say, where do I start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about language and power today, and I think there's something very powerful about sitting in a room where the first decisions about language and power might have taken place. If we did a thought experiment, what would those conversations have sounded like?
What are those heathens talking outside of the gate? Why don't they speak Dutch or Hollands or whatever?
The savages.
Didn't we take out their front teeth so that they don't lose their clicks?
Right.
I think those are real conversations that would have happened in this room. And the saddest thing is, some of those conversations in a more sophisticated form still happen in some of our houses. 50 years after 76.
50 years after 76, some of those conversations are still here. It gives the conversation a different aura, doesn't it? Venete, you're born in Cape Town. You live in Pretoria. We're grateful that you are here for this. When is the last time you were at the castle?
Well, Joe, when I was 10 years old. In fact, as I got out of the car, I just felt this sense of nostalgia. And I just realized I hadn't been back here since 10 years old. And to kind of latch on to what Calvyn said, 1976 was my matric year. So I was class of 76, so that brings a whole new meaning. I mean, walking in here, the nostalgia, hearing about maybe at that stage what had happened in this very room. 1976 was my matric year.
But were you even 40 years ago here? You look like a spring.
Doesn't she? Fountain of youth.
Well, I normally say 45 plus VAT. You can do that.
And did you expect a black governor to welcome you in the castle?
No, actually not. Fortunately, well informed.
It is momentous. It's incredible.
It's big, yeah? Did you think this thing will work out like this, Jolene?
I did not, no.
Okay.
But I definitely will say that I feel how everything has perfectly aligned, and the puzzle pieces have just come together so perfectly that I believe this conversation was ordained way before we are sitting here.
Agreed.
Powerful.
Yeah. I think it's a meant to be moment, and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about language and the power of language in a South African context. We're going to start in the late 1600s, early 1700s. We're going to zoom forward to 1976. Then we're going to talk about our contemporary situation, and then we're going to look forward. So, Calvyn, you knowing so much history about the castle and the Cape of Storms, the Cape of Good Hope, Cape Town, which julle moet hier leer, I'm going to have to teach you, thank you. The original name for Cape Town. So, tell us what kind of business took place in this area, who arrived here, what languages did they bring with them?
I want both of you in the audience, the viewers, to imagine there's no castle, no van der Stel room. So there's the nature outside, there's flowers, there's birds, there's animals, elephants, rhinos, all kinds of things here. And there's a people here. That people is the Khoi. What the Dutch then later called the Hottentots, and they spoke a very colorful and a beautiful language. And the very first thing that the Dutch did was to take that language away. That language helped the Khoi people long before Van Riebeeck to speak to the Spanish, to speak to the Brits, to speak to the French, to speak to the Spanish, to speak to the Portuguese, and exchange trade. So that language was sufficient to trade, because money speaks louder than words. So the Khoi people had a thriving economy, and the sea was just behind us here, on this coast, southern coast of Africa. So imagine you close your eyes, there's no castle, they speak, there's people speaking French, Spanish, and it's a convergence of different worlds, and it's so beautiful. And imagine that situation they continued until today. I'm a romantic now. It can never be like that. But imagine the Dutch didn't send Van Riebeeck here, and that trade continued and organically grown into another system. Would we have had this discussion about language here, even in this room today? That's the question that I want to ask. So the destruction of a language, every language carries a through the culture, because you need words to say what is that, what is love, what is that. So if you destroy that, you destroy a whole system, the economic system, the cultural system, and you superimpose this on. And then 350 years later, you want to enforce that language that you almost ran that out of that violence and out of that oppression and repression, and you want to enforce that on a part of our population, and you expect nothing to happen.
So you've mentioned some of the European languages that arrived, and they arrived with explorers, soldiers, people who stopped here, sailors needing to fix their ships and so forth. But what about some of the languages that came with slaves? Because I know at the castle you also have a Malay museum, so there were slave languages that arrived as well.
Remember, I described the language and intercultural connections before Van Riebeeck. So then Van Riebeeck came, and he bring with him a new system of thinking, a oppressive system. Although the VOC told him not to enslave the Khoi people, de facto they were enslaved. Kretua, if she had choices, would not have lived and served in his household. So that's the one issue. But for me, even more worrying is that a couple of weeks after Van Riebeeck arrived here, he wrote to the VOC and asked for enslaved people, because he is the colonists who came with him couldn't farm, couldn't work, were lazy, drunk, and he realized, based on his experience in the East, that if we bring enslaved people, it would be easier to fulfill the task that the VOC gave him during the Cape. So in come the enslaved people from what today is Japan. Remember, they were not called Japan and China those days. From Japan, from what is today China, India, Indonesia. But what people don't forget is that, often forget, is that the first enslaved people were African enslaved people from Ghana and from Madagascar, and before the slaves from the East, came into the Cape. So all of those languages brought here in Van Riebeeck's castle, next to this castle, and in this particular castle.
So are we saying that the Khoikhoi they weren't able to enslave the Khoikhoi?
It was written in he got like 10 instructions. And out of fear for how big the Khoikhoi population might be, what they wrote in, you must give the Dutch the credit.
We give the Dutch the credit.
They are so clever. So they said, okay, we don't know if there are millions of Khoi people here. Let us not anger them. Let's not enslave them on the books. And so one of the instructions was that he shouldn't enslave people. But there's more and more historic records indicating that the VOC did indeed also enslave Khoi and San people at the Cape.
Fascinating. And the reason why, there are two reasons why I needed you here, Venete, was one, you come from a business background, and this region is business. And then the other reason was this episode was inspired by an interview clip that went viral between myself and Marius Fransman, which we'll look at shortly. But you made a comment in that comment section which was so honest and so real. And I'm going to ask you if you remember your comment after we watched the clip. I think the team has prepared it for us. Just in case people think that we don't have the same struggles. In no way is it the equivalent to. But I do want to give some people some insight into the battles that we face in our space. So I was booked to play the role of, obviously, a brown businesswoman. And the character breakdown was she comes from Cape Town. And upon starting to film, I was told, oh no, your Afrikaans is not suitable for this role. Contracted, we're filming. It's not suitable for this role. I said, why? She's a businesswoman, she's from Cape Town. She says, listen to this, yes, but she went to university. Oh, so because she went to university, I can't say J, I must say yay. And I endured almost a year of dialect coaching, 2 hours every day, so that I would not say J, I would learn to say yay. I would not say ik, I would say ek. Ek sal nie my pa sê nie, ek sal my pa sê. Subtle, but very deep.
Sorry, was this supposed to swear?
Honest responses are allowed. Remember, we are a podcast, and that's the beauty of this format, is that we are not really governed by a broadcaster.
Yeah,
so your
thanks for
response,
that,
no, you're welcome.
What was your comment on that?
Yeah, I do remember it very well. I sat there on the Sunday afternoon listening to this, and I had to dig deep to be able to respond as honestly as I did. Because there's also one thing we've learned in South Africa is the right answer in order to survive, and that one that comes from your gut, which you know you've got to suppress. But that afternoon I actually think I brought the parallel, because what had also happened, which Jolene is not saying, is there was somebody else who'd commented to say, but you know, it is expected of you, Jolene, you're an actress, so please just get with the program. And I thought that cannot go unchallenged.
Yeah, of course not.
As a person who grew up on the Cape Flats myself, I grew up with Jay and Joe. But when I decided to move to Pretoria and enter a system, a banking system run predominantly by white males at that time, obviously a lot of it's changed now, I had to very quickly learn yay and yo.
To survive.
That was my choice.
Yeah.
If I had gone into the boardroom with the J and Joe, I don't think I would ever have gotten to run a retail bank in this country. So, you know, I guess listening, Calvyn, to what you've said about how the Khoisan sign had to survive and decisions that had been made to suppress language and the richness of bringing all these other people into this country is all about the diversity that was then so blended. But the one thing they cannot take away from people like ourselves is that through all of that, we have learned how to survive. And to survive in different industries, in my case, in banking, to a point where I sat on the board of the Reserve Bank making decisions around banking laws in this country and running a retail bank. I couldn't do that with the J and a Joe.
Wow.
And I guess Gratua had to learn at that stage, much as she didn't want to go and be somebody's nanny and then become somebody else's wife. She had no choice but to survive. So I guess in life, we cannot talk away the real experiences that we've gotten to get here. There is nothing pure about our race. We are so mixed. But in that sits the potential to be anything we choose to be, if that's what we choose. The one thing that I do not allow, though, is that anybody else talks it down. Because it cost us everything to get to where we are. We are this blended, rich, versatile, smart, phenomenal people with so much locked up inside, but it cost us losing everything. To take that on.
And the comment section, to that clip blew my mind, because I was innocently relaying a personal experience. And now I can look back at the experience and say I'm grateful, because the lesson taught me that if I do want to be a heavy hitter in my industry, I'm gonna need to learn different dialects, different accents, and now I can do a Cockney accent, I can do an American accent, Irish, whatever it is. It took that to teach me. So I'm grateful for it now, but as you can see from the comment section, it's hurtful. And it hit such a raw nerve.
So in summary, what were people saying? Was it negative? Do they say, what do you think? Who are you?
It was mostly people needing to tell their experience. And the experiences have been hurtful. And that's when I found out opportunity has been held back from people because of how they speak and what they speak. And as Venete is saying, we can't forgo and forget everything we've been through. But if you go through that comment section, and I want people to revisit the video, go back to it, read the comments and interact with people. And I also realized then we need a table discussion. It needs a table discussion, because people need to hear that they are heard, and these conversations need to happen. Venete, in your comment, you did mention your work with AHI.
Yes.
Tell us, what is AHI and what you did there?
AHI stands for the Afrikaans Handelsinstituut.
Okay. Almal saam nou, julle weet.
My Afrikaans, weet dat almal weet, is vlot. Ek was die eerste vroue president, the first woman president of the Afrikaans Handelsinstituut in then their 66-year history. So I think we go back to, this is not about Afrikaans being wrong and English being right. It's the richness that our people have locked up on the inside and the choices that we make with what we have. So I mean, it's, you know, we're going to talk about 1976 in a while and why that happened. But I guess people around this table, the one thing we can take away is that we are who we are. We are the products of a lot of pressure and force, a lot of it not our choice. The choice we have, though, is with all of that on the inside, what are we going to do? Do we use it? Or do we abuse it by blaming a system that we cannot change? It happened. So what do we do going forward? And those are the choices I had to make when I got to Pretoria. Very Afrikaans. To go from there, where I probably Afrikaans was not great, But I had to learn. I
Jou
had to adjust.
standaarde Afrikaans
It's a new skill.
wasn't great.
Absoluut. My very first interview moes ek gepraat het van 'n biljoen rand.
As jy biljoen rand, 'n miljard.
Ek gesê dis 'n miljard. Toe sê ek nee, kyk nou moet ek weer van vooraf gaan leer. So that's exactly the point. You know?
Yeah.
I said a billion. Well, I must tell you afterwards, Calvyn, I've heard 100 people afterwards still say billion.
Billion, ja.
Maar ek dink nie dat dit van die president van die Afrikaanse Handelsinstituut aanvaar. Ek moes dit korrigeer.
Ja.
So Jolene, we have got so much depth and deepness in, so what do we do with it? We can sit here, and I guess that's why I responded like I did to that comment, was I realized that there was someone out there who clearly had a very specific perspective, which is okay.
Yeah.
But let us not judge each other. Rather use that which we've got. Look at the brilliance and bring that out. Let each other shine, not break each other down.
And we're not saying we hate Afrikaans. We in fact love Afrikaans.
Absolute.
Absolute.
Oh, we will talk about it now, but I want to tell you, I was a geography lecturer in geomorphology. They say that it got like 10 tons of rubble, of stone, to create 1 carat of diamond. So pressure creates the diamonds.
Absolutely.
And adaptability is very important.
Calvyn, we can't allow that to go unchallenged. Are you saying that you have 2 diamonds at the table? We'd like you to just say it on here.
Absolutely,
Please,
absolutely.
please, we'd like you to listen more.
And I'm totally non-sexist. So do you see a diamond? Do you see a diamond here? Do you see a diamond here?
Just wanted to check. Thank you.
This is why I love
But
you.
I want to take the thing of Afrikaans also. Last year, and some people in this room know, we were approached to have the 100 years, the main event for the 100 years of Afrikaans. So they came to me and they say, and I told the organizers, but do you know who I am? I love Afrikaans, but you know my view on Afrikaans. If you know my views on Afrikaans, you will not come here. And she said, no, but we want a little bit of radicalism also in the thing. And they interviewed me. I told them they had the venue. And they then had this thing on Kijknet or one of these Afrikaans channels. And my interview was nowhere to be found.
You were too radical.
No, it wasn't even radical. I mean, it was just a take on a language. I was saying that this is my mother tongue, and I speak it as my mother taught me. I don't edify that. I don't make this thing a god. I'm not worried that it's going to die out. I'm more worried that Nama is going to die out or bring back Khoi Kuchowap than Afrikaans. And it's nothing to do with 76. It's to do with if you believe in something culturally or whatever, that thing will survive without you. You don't have to get millions of rand to create a special organization to protect this thing. It will naturally live or naturally die. And if there are speakers like me, black speakers who should hate the language, who still speak it proudly, and I like in Namibia, everybody in Namibia speaks Afrikaans. Wambu, Damara, so-called colored, they speak. Nothing will happen to I'm worried about the peripheral languages that's dying out. And too much energy is spent on Afrikaans, which I think has got a vibrancy. In Pretoria, maybe another vibrancy than on the Cape Flats, but it's got a vibrancy that will take it into the next millennium. They don't have to worry. And the second thing that I strongly disagreed with them is that why is Afrikaans 100 years old if this country is 400 years old? Is there not something wrong with your calculations? And I just left it there. And I'm censored out of there.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Like the young people say, the math ain't mathin'. The math ain't mathin'. That's interesting.
Can I just add on to something? Yeah. You know, the thing is, and Joe, we keep on referring to you going to be going down the 1976 route in a little while, but in 1998, I spent a year in the US. I was one of the participants of the Madiba, the Nelson Mandela Professional Development Program.
Yeah, I remember that program.
You remember that one. Madiba went over to the US and he then with Mayor Dinkins, who was the first black mayor of New York, had agreed that you would train up in New York or in America 100 aspirant black leaders. And I was blessed enough to be one of those. But I think the point that you make about Afrikaans, and yes, you know, there's this huge argument about we were forced to do the language, etc. I'll never forget walking in Grand Central in that year, because I didn't come home, I was there for an entire year. Walking in Grand Central, and I heard somebody speak Afrikaans behind me, and I swear I wanted to turn around and kiss. It was a man and a woman. I knew I'd get into trouble. I was in America too, you know, you don't touch, you don't hug.
Yeah.
But it was just such a feeling of this is home.
Yeah.
So, you know, yes, there's a lot to be said about Afrikaans and how people were forced to use it or to take that at school as a language.
Yeah.
And yes, the focus on Afrikaans. But I guess the fact that it is still part of who we are today, I am still proudly speaking Afrikaans.
Ja.
En ek is baie trots. My kleinseuns kan Engels en Afrikaans praat. Ek het 4 kleinseuns en 1 kleindogter. Hulle praat almal Engels en Afrikaans.
Ja.
Nou kan ek glo dat sy 40 jaar gelede was.
Hoekom want die praktijk
I had a similar experience in Mallorca, Spain, and I was working in Mallorca at the time,
beautiful.
and I heard Afrikaans, but I heard Afrikaans.
Oh, Afrikaans. Okay.
I heard Afrikaans behind me.
That's
Draai ek om, and the first thing is so, my bro! I mean, I grew up in Mitchell's Plain. My Afrikaans is very different. It's glad nie standaard nie.
Talking about Afrikaans, you both are invited, you're probably uninvitable, to...
well, is this an age?
We, in April, we're launching the Afrikaans English dictionary for the girls.
The one that UWC has been working on?
Professor Quentin Williams, It's going to be launched.
Wow.
Please put in a good word with me.
Please,
We need to
yes.
get Professor Quentin in here on the show.
he must.
But also, we'll attend, right?
We
there?
definitely will.
Yeah?
We definitely
Okay.
will. Just get us those invites.
Okay.
Yes, please. Thank you for that.
Sorted.
Thank you.
Language in South Africa, or language anywhere really, is organic. And to come back to your point, Calvyn, we should allow it to grow. We should allow it to evolve. Language in South Africa has never been neutral, and now we get to 76. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the 1976 uprisings. And again, we've always said that the Southern Question is going to be an intergenerational conversation, an intergenerational chat. And having said that, there are probably, hopefully, some people watching with their kids and their teenagers. And we'll be sensitive with what we show on screen, but let's just get a refresher of what 1976 looked like.
Stop right there. This is an illegal gathering. I'm giving you 3 minutes to disperse.
I wasn't born yet. Both of you were there. So explain to me, what did 1976 look like, smell like, feel like in the Western Cape?
Can
Me go first. Okay.
okay.
I was class of 76. And I think what doesn't come up there, that was Soweto. If you were to look at the tapes of Mitchell's Plain and Athlone, you remember the Trojan horse? So, yeah, that's...
The Trojan horse was right outside Sinton, which is...
It was a bit further down. It was more towards Cromboom Road, but it was on that road. So, yeah, it opens up a whole lot of wounds. It really does. I guess you look at that and, you know, you remember the sacrifices. And, you know, for the younger people out there who may not understand and say, what is this all about? Young people had to die. Young people, school children, so that we could sit here today and we get the freedom of choice of who we get married to, what businesses we go into, how we compete. It doesn't always remain fair because there's still all kinds of backgrounds with that. But that talks to the investment that had been made for our democracy. And I just pray there's no other message that gets given after this episode, is that young people will understand that they did not have to go through that because their parents, me being one, Calvyn, you being another, had to go through that. And we're not going to talk about where I was at that stage because I was in matric year. I was sent from one school to another, beaten. So we were...
I don't know that about you.
Unpack
that for us. What do you mean?
It happened after the June uprising on the 1st of September 1976 at Oaklands. We decided that we were going to march to Sinton, Alexander Sinton. And we faced, obviously, a barrage of police or law enforcers telling us we must disperse. But as young people are, we had seen what had happened up north and we knew we were fighting for a cause. We didn't think we'd get shot. We knew that people had been shot, but this is the Cape Flats. We always thought that we were different, right? We still do. And we didn't think that that would happen to us. Well, nobody was shot on that day, but I was beaten black and blue. And when I saw one of those young people, not one, a few of them bend down to pick up their peers and drag them, that's actually why I got beaten. Because one of the people, we were running from Sinton to Oaklands, and we had to go through the railway line. And just after Taronga Road, between Taronga Road and the railway line, there were like patches of ground there, and one of the girls fell, and a friend of mine and I turned back, and as we picked her up, dragging her, that's when with batons. Now they didn't shoot us. But I very nearly didn't finish my matric certificate because my dad said to me that day, you're not going to go back. I did not send you to school to go and get killed. And I was out of school for almost a month, almost didn't write until two of my friends, both deceased today, came to knock on the door just as they were handing out the matric numbers and said, you have to write. There's no better New Year's gift than to see your name in the paper. Because I was always quite diligent. And I persuaded my dad and I could go back. Both of them died. I mean, after years, and I thank them both today. But it cost so many of us so that we have a democracy which we must not take for granted.
I'm a bit better now. It's a good thing that you didn't ask me to speak first. It's very difficult for me to unemotionally speak about these things. And I know I'm part of a collective that commemorates these events every year. But we don't think of the victims or of the mothers and the fathers of the victims and how it must feel to bring these things up. June 16 was the first day of TV or the second day of television. So I was at high school, 13, turning 14, 4 days after the outbreak of the Soweto unrest. And my dad's birthday was the 17th. So it's very close to us. We remember it. And although I grew up in a conscious, politically educated house, 76 really molded me as an activist. First pamphlet was like a page like you have there. It was a written pamphlet, Bill 2, and we explained it. I mean, one of the township schools in Paul East, Paulus Joubert, I was there.
Who issued the pamphlets?
No, the students, yeah. Like, I know you know Christine Brink. She was like you, our leader at school. So they produced a pamphlet on a negative. What is this thing called? Folio. You write on it, and then you put it through the roller.
Wow.
And the pamphlet comes out in handwriting. And I remember who gave me the pamphlet also.
Who gave it to you?
It's a lady called Mercia Boyson. She was also one of the leaders. She was a year or so in front of us. And so the pamphlet was not like hundreds of pamphlets. You had to pass it on. You had to read and pass it on, read and pass it on. And I mean, so 14 years and this happens. And then in the evening you go back and see it on television. And it's not only it wasn't immediately the conscientization of the communities in the Western Cape happened months after June 16. But when it broke out in Paarl, it was like madness. Our school, if I had to walk home from my school, I had to pass the police station. Sometimes I got so scared because the police were scared. I mean, that power is so big of the community that the people who should keep you safe, you feel scared on their behalf because the police station is closed. And you have, bottles and petrol bombs and bricks thrown at the police station. The police are scared. But at night, they shoot. Wow. So our house was there was an open field between our house and the main street where anything happened. And some of those bullets would shoot in a wall. Would come in the wall. And so I said, what if I went out to go to the toilet? Because the toilets were outside, weren't outside those days. They would have shot me because I literally checked the height. The height of the bullet in our house was like my height. It would have been through my head. So that's why I'm very emotional when it gets to this. And later as an activist, obviously this built up. I'm also saying that June 16 should not be seen separate from the March of 1955, Freedom Charter, all of those events, the Committee of 81, the student protest in 1980, and then the whole youth putting their life on the line in the 80s. All of those events are linked. And the result is that, like many people didn't further their studies, and although June 16 was mostly by the Black Consciousness Movement, Steve Biko and Black Consciousness Movement. The students who gave up their studies and went out joined the ANC and the PAC. And June 16 actually built the ANC in a big way, because a lot of those young people, students, were received in Lusaka or in Gaborone by the ANC, and then sent for training in Moscow or wherever. So, and we didn't get to the language of June 16, but the June 16 in terms of the struggle for freedom, the struggle against oppression, against apartheid, against exploitation, against the violent systems of discrimination, was actually, June 16 actually foregrounded that. Because then I think the youth led, and then our parents joined, and then the university students joined, but it was really the school youth that were at the forefront. We're talking about, in the struggle, we talk about the motive forces of the struggle at that time, was the high school students in school, and the others followed, the unions and whatever. Yeah.
So am I correct in saying, from what I'm hearing, is that, so the fire started in Soweto, and then the flames spread
right over the country.
Right over the country.
Absolutely.
But it sounds as though the youth in the Western Cape were ready.
Yeah.
And it sounds as though you were organized.
Yeah.
That's, to someone my age, that's impressive. And I want to say that now while you're speaking, so many people have asked me, why, Jolene, did you want the Simon van der Stel room? The team have been wanting to know. Everybody wants to know, and I'll say so now because I want, and I know when you two walked into the room, you noticed the weaponry.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to talk about it in front of the weaponry and let you know the guns have been put away. The guns have been put away. And it might still be triggering, but for us, my generation, it's also important. This imagery is important for us.
Yeah.
So we understand what it is you went through. So on behalf of my generation, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I just want to add on to something that you've said. When Joe pointed out the rifles to me, I said, the only part of that gun I was ever exposed to was in the front of the gun.
Sure.
Because that's what we knew. And I must tell you, it's a part of my trauma. I don't think to this day I've ever really dealt with. I prefer when something like this really tries to trigger me, I deal with my triggers by jesting about it. So I've created in my own mind, I'm just comfortable in the front of the gun because that's what happened. And many of my fellow students just fell by our side and could do nothing. But Joe, on the inside, I'm going to go back to say that we have so much that we have to offer given what we've been through. And that is why the richness of this episode for me is just so, it feels like a watershed moment that we get parents who've been through it to be able to explain to the young people today that this wasn't a nothing. This was that very thing that gave you the opportunity today to choose where you work, who you marry, what you become. That was the price that had to be paid. And I think young people need to hear that and recognize that.
Absolutely. And at the heart of that, there were actually two policies which we need to talk about. That was the Language Act and the Bantu Education Act. Please tell us about that.
I don't even want to talk. You know that in 1948, the National Party won the elections. Barely 5 years after that, they saw it fit to promulgate, to take through their parliament an act that says how black people should be educated. Educated for the minds, educated for hard labor, educated for, what did Ford say that, black child?
There was no maths.
Maths, what good is it to teach a child? Yeah, he said, a minister said, what good is a child to teach a child?
And to clarify, then coloured was also black, right?
Yeah. So to teach a black child mathematics, then when he's not going to use it in practice. But I want to come to that 1948 and 1953. What's that, 5 years now?
Yeah.
You can't, in such a short space of time, conceptualize these things. It means that colonial governments, union governments already had these attitudes toward black people. It was that the National Party had the audacity to put this in acts, in the law, so that there's no room for maneuvering. Now I know you talked earlier about adaptability, etc. Now I grew up in one of the first townships, so I say brown townships of Paarl East, after the forced removals. And in that, there were, around us were many so-called Xhosa-speaking people. And it's like they've learned how to speak Afrikaans. And I'm linking all of this, it's about surviving and getting to, in my school where I was, Pauli Subir instead of in Langabuya. And so this, how people were forced to survive, how people had to adapt, how people had to change their surnames to adapt, their names to adapt, their accents to survive this system, which I'm saying you can't. You just empower when you make all these acts. So that was the first big thing. At the time, then a couple of years later, in 73, 74, they promulgated a Language Act. An act that would make Afrikaans superior to English. Just remember that we were colonized by the Dutch, then by the Brits, then 1910 they became the Union, and smile with each other. But all black people were excluded from that smiling with each other, but they still hated each other. So the fact that the National Party had to promulgate an act to elevate Afrikaans by teaching to people who have no clue of Afrikaans, or have little clues of Afrikaans, to say that as a Xhosa speaking or Sotho speaking person, some of your subjects will now not only be in English, but also in Afrikaans. Now, conceptually, it's crazy. Already this thing of mother tongue teaching is difficult, no? Because I understand concepts in Afrikaans better, and then I translate it in my mind, and then I apply it in English. But imagine a Sotho child or Xhosa child needs to now go from that to English and then to Afrikaans. It's just, and that's not all. Then the allocation in the 80s, after this act, they invest in a white child. What is it, 226 rand? And in a black African child, 40 rand. Now I'm saying it's 50 years after June 16, huh? How do you make up for that? How from birth, the white child gets better. Prenatal training, natal training, preschool, school, and the government gives you, how many times? 40 goes into 5 times more. So how do you, through history looking in the present, undo that? So when I want to come to the present, so now they say, and it's not against the point that you say. I think we still should deal with that. But if you look at, schools are open, but if you look at the schools who had that handicap, or it's a handicap. You get a handicap.
Yes.
It's like you're putting me with the same boat. You must put me almost at the end of just before the line.
You can't start from the same place.
Yeah, that's the
starting
point.
block is not
It's
the
not
same.
at the same place. So that's my problem, and 50 years is not a long. It's not a long time. 50 years look long, but it's not a long time. 20 years for me, 50 years look long, but now 50 years is for me. It's like yesterday, and so in a very short space of time, with these acts, discriminatory acts, we still say, but we don't. Wow, why did they riot against Afrikaans? Why, they must be grateful. All of it. It's so unfair, and that's why I said earlier, I'm very proud of my mother tongue, but I also think it's very unfair to not give the Sotho, Zulu, Xhosa people also an opportunity to be proud of their mother tongue. So, and I know that 76 was not only exclusively about the language. It was about the township life, the hostel system, the disrespect for humanity, because all black people were excluded from the deal that the Brits and the Dutch had struck. The National Party in 1948 only took all of those philosophical ideas and refined it into act. Fortunately for us, it only lasted 40 years.
Afrikaans then, I think, to those students must have felt like a tool of control, and they were rebelling against that. Yeah. And you talk about the difficulty of a child growing up in a home where another language is their home language, and then needing to be instructed in a brand new language. Yeah. I've only, as an actress, I've portrayed an educator, but some of these educators had never spoken of Afrikaans.
Yeah.
How do you educate a generation not being able to speak it yourself as an educator? It must have been very frustrating.
Can I maybe put a bit of a different slant on it? Because I'm sitting here, and because I'm a numbers person, I always look at, okay, we had all the odds stacked against us. Now, I know I'm going to probably get pushed back, and Calvyn, please, I mean, that's I think is what this discussion is about. Think about it this way. If you had all those obstacles in front of you, and you made it nonetheless.
We are diamonds.
Venete.
Therein, for me, lies the truth.
Yeah.
You see, because we can continue, and I mean, Calvyn, everything you've said is 100%. But one of the things I chose, and talking to me now, because I mean, that after all, that's what we're here to do, is to talk about
our
experiences. Too many of our people have gone through being kicked to the curb by a system, women by marriage, by partners, you name it. Unfairness it's apartheid, it's language, everything. But if you, in spite of it, get through it.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're not attacking me.
The carrot of your diamond. Don't forget, what do they say? You
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
But platinum is worth more than silver because it sits in the refiner's fire for longer. All I'm saying is, it is true, that is what happened. But if you could get through it in spite of it.
It's the human spirit.
That's the question. And from what you said about, when Jan van Riebeeck came here, and he quickly realized the people then were not going to be told. They were not. He had to go and import a lot of people from all over. We integrated with all of them. And guess who we are? We own the spirit of that perseverance and brilliance. There's nothing that we cannot do. It's good to know the history. But if that history becomes my limiter,
or your jail, then
this
is a problem.
Then quite frankly, the sacrifice of 1976
for naught.
For naught. That's why I say it cost us so much. Our democracy cost us everything. History has got to be told, but what do we do with it? What sits in our hands? What the story you don't even know, Joe, is because of all of this, I couldn't finish my university degree. I was chucked out because of it. But guess what? In spite of all of that, I got to study at Harvard, MIT, IMD, and INSEAD, and just for those of you, just in case you don't know, INSEAD, the Europeans have got to have a different education system to the Americans. So the Europeans built INSEAD, and INSEAD has got 2 campuses, Fontainebleau as well as Singapore. And Mark has studied at both. And guess what? Thrown out of university, and I get to study at all those places because I chose. That 1976 wasn't going to determine where I land. And Joe, just a little bit of you and my history. Joe will tell you how many times when things don't go right, I'd say, girl, just back up one more step. Breathe.
That's right.
Think again. This is the truth, but this doesn't say that we end here. So Calvyn, hopefully I'm not talking away your points. That's not what I'm trying to do. I want to make sure that our young people understand.
I think you amplify my points.
Ooh, I love that.
Great. I was so hoping you'd say that.
I love that. And I think for me, I had a moment like that October last year when I had to learn Afrikaans at 13 because we didn't speak Afrikaans in my family. And some people don't realize that there were families that forbade Afrikaans. Some families, you were forbidden to speak Afrikaans. So I had to learn Afrikaans at the age of 13 when I got my first job as a field presenter for the national broadcaster. Which is, we talk about starting blocks
13.
At 13.
I was June 16, 13.
So I had to learn the language, right? And I got headhunted immediately after matric in 1997. So I went from Cape Town to Joburg, and that's where my live broadcast career started. So it never went to tertiary education. So starting blocks, very different for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But last year, I was filming my second season for a drama series for Showmax, and I stood across from the iconic Dion Lotz. And I thought, despite all of that, I'm standing opposite Dion Lotz.
And at the same height as he, not lower.
There we go.
And we love each other. Dion and I love each other. And that was my moment of I didn't let my starting block determine where I would end up. So I hear you completely when you mention that, Venete.
And it's not always easy. There are days when you just pray and hope that you get it right. We don't always have it. But I can only just say to the young people out there, I don't want to say fake it until you make it, because that's ugly. But sometimes you actually need to.
Yeah.
If you believe you have what it takes, go for it.
Absolutely. Venete, did you want to say something?
No, there's something about the youth that I think what the work that you're doing here, that we're talking about here, is so critical. And the earlier offset, I called it the age of hyper-narcissism. I think the images that we see there and the kind of sacrifices that we go through to be platinum or diamonds, or 6-carat diamonds, without seeking that gratification, it just comes natural. I blame it on our generation because I don't think we talk enough with them. We often talk at them or say, don't be like this or like that. But we don't have a conversation. And often families, the parents are not empowered to have that conversation with the youngsters in the house. And I think this initiative should trickle and should stimulate that debate and that conversation around these things. I don't know how often you're on TV or on radio, whatever, but those are few moments. I'm looking for a consistent conversation where we can talk with the youth in their language. So language again, language is power. About the issues that we went through, that they're going through now, and how we find that middle road. I know that many of the youth look scornful at us. If you made it, there's not enough opportunities for us. And I think, and then we shut each other off. We don't talk because you've made it, we're struggling to make it. But June 16 for me is really, and not only in the 50th year, forever, in perpetuity, is the opportunity for the senior youth, or yesterday's youth, and the current youth to have this conversation about humanity, about life, about beauty, about nature, about everything. And when I say this, I'm thinking up north. I'm thinking what's happening in the Middle East. I'm thinking what's happening in Ukraine. I see what is happening in our own country, what's happening in DRC, where the youth don't even have these platforms or the possibility of these platforms to engage with us. So this is big work that you are doing now.
Thank you, Calvyn. I appreciate it. Venete said that earlier before we started filming as well, and I appreciate that. It certainly does feel like big work. Talking about our youth, you talk about the youth. Let's turn our eye to the youth. First of all, Venete, what languages are spoken in boardrooms today? Because we've got kids that are watching and they're going to enter these spaces. At the moment, what languages are spoken in boardrooms today, and how do businesses navigate multilingual environments?
Typically it's English, but I sit on a few boards which is Afrikaans. So van raadstukke lees en alles in Afrikaans moet doen. Dan moet jy weet, alles moet nou soos jy terecht sê, ek moes dit eers alles vertaal. So jy weet, nou die dag
You've got to translate it in
your head,
and thank God for ChatGPT. Thank God for ChatGPT. And thank God that they've never outlawed cell phones. I mean, you can quickly. Iemand het gepraat van gaars. Toe moet ek nog vinnig kyk wat is gaars. You know, so all I'm saying is, it is typically in this country, it's English. That is the official business language.
Okay.
I'll never forget, there was a time when it was said in the banks that we had to have, I think it was the 12 official languages.
Right.
Was it 11, 12?
I think it's 12 now.
12 official languages. We had to have all of those docs. but that quickly faded because they realized it wasn't
impossible.
possible.
It's not
Because
sustainable.
You'd have to have systems to support
Yeah.
that, all your documentation, you need reprinting, you would need to re-educate or retrain all of us, because not all of us
Yeah.
can speak all the languages. So typically at the moment, the official language English with Afrikaans, depending where you are. In the provinces, in Northern Cape and Northwest where I sit, those are Afrikaans, but the rest are all English.
Yeah, in the castle, it again also depends on the people. What I always do is to cover all the angles with human beings, so that there's somebody who would understand Sesotho, there's someone who speaks Xhosa, whatever. But it's mostly English. But when the Khoi revivalist movement come here, it's so nice to speak lekker Afrikaans met hulle, to speak Afrikaans with them, and to vloek in Afrikaans, and to sing in Afrikaans.
That's the best part of Afrikaans.
And yeah, and I must say, like you, like both of you, you've traveled a lot, and there's no language that expresses anger, grief, happiness as Afrikaans. I know a little bit of hopefully I know Dutch, I know a little bit German, Afrikaans and English, but none of them are as expressive as Afrikaans, and especially Kaap's Afrikaans. Kaap's.
Afrikaans.
Afrikaans, yeah.
And that also evolves now. If you go to the Boland where I'm coming from, they speak another Afrikaans. If you go, but it's still Afrikaans. It's still taking this thing where you were taught to say po and mo and sissy and buti, take it and make it their own. And express their cultural and socio-economic circumstances in that language. So that language is a powerful tool to survive. If you go now into the flats, you will hear how they speak. Sometimes, I forget that the words that we used when we were speaking Kaap's in the 60s and 70s, they laugh at us. They laugh at us now. They don't understand you. You try must know when they try to know your slang. You want must to adapt to the people where you are.
Yeah.
Then they say, waar komt die oman vandaan?
Calvyn, the castle is doing something very interesting at the moment, which I think is groundbreaking, particularly for a colonial institution. The castle is now offering
Russian. Do you talk Russian?
Khoi Gewab in Russian. You're doing language courses in Khoi Gewab,
Yep.
which is the Khoi indigenous mother tongue, and Russian.
Yeah.
What inspired this move?
The extreme. Let me start with Khoi Gewab. Name, I can't pronounce the name of Table Mountain. Hurikwahu. If you look with the foot of Table Mountain, that language on a quiet afternoon would have echoed through the kloofs and the ravines of Table Mountain. So to hear it here, sometimes I come in and I just stand and I hear Bradley's teaching Khoi Gewab, and I think, and my imagination goes, how wonderful would it have been to be here 400 years ago and to hear that? No?
Absolutely.
And I come into the Northern Cape or Southern Namibia and they speak Nama, and I get the same feeling. So when I have my kids around me, I say, I will ask the waiter, just tell them what is the sausage in Nama, and then they laugh. It's so amazing. For me, it will be almost criminal if Nama is not a 13th language, or if there's not more attempts to give it more recognition, to teach us Nama, because it's the closest to what's spoken here.
And Nama is also known as Khoi Gewab, Damara, same family.
So Damara in there, Damara in Namibia, and they speak it. Two of my aunts could, because they were married to men there, could speak it. Because it's an easier language. Nama and Damara are easier languages to learn. Not the problem. The thing with what was spoken here, it was very much influenced by the San language, with the clicks, and that's why the language was so much difficult to articulate. So that's the one thing. The second one.
Before you go on, though, if the inclusion as
Yeah.
one of the official languages, my thought has always been, if it's good enough to be on our coat of arms, it's good enough to be in our schools.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
There's a point.
absolutely. No. So Russian, okay, the Russian thing.
Pray tell.
Even if you are now chairperson of all these things, your activism will stay for you forever. So there's this whole notion of demonizing the East, China, Russia, former Soviet Union, and I mean during our time, they were the agitators, the red, they were the terrorists, they were all the bad names. Even if there's a new worm discovered that destroys the crop, it's from Russia. So I almost feel it my life mission to change the perceptions around other countries. They are lovely people. And for those who drink the vodka is also nice.
I think it might be easier to learn the language with a tot of vodka. How do we prepare our children if South Africa is now, and we are within the BRICS partnership, and the future of global trade is increasingly going through BRICS? How do we prepare our kids? Obviously Russian is playing into that, but should we be offering Mandarin, Russian at an earlier stage to our children? You have grandkids. We've got to be thinking about their future.
Look, I'm going to be opportunistic with that answer. If you look at the world at large today, this is not my anti-Western perspective, because it's not anti-Western. I was trained in the West. You heard that I stayed in the US. But if you look at the opportunities right now, they are largely in the East. Think about that. China has got these wonderful cars that's being designed. Oh, by the way, I drive one of the newest ones there.
Beautiful.
And I will tell you, when I see what's happening to the price of fuel right now, I think my timing is perfect. So, but I mean, if you just consider it, I mean, China used to be known as the place where you couldn't buy anything from.
Yeah,
Today
maybe.
you can get the best quality of everything, because if you think about it, even the West used to have all their parts made in
That's
China
right.
because it was cheap.
But they sell it as Western
That's a good
stuff.
point.
Correct. So guess what? The technology and the skill actually is already there. And what China doesn't have, they simply go out and buy. I mean, they just bought with the design of this car that I've got. They went to go and buy one of the top brands, Bentley's, one of their top guys, to come and do their design. So guys, you know what? For my kids, I say be open.
Yeah.
We're opportunistic people,
Yeah.
I believe. We understand challenges.
Yeah.
We've had to scale many walls to get there.
Yeah.
Do not let the political structure of the day limit
Yeah.
who we are.
Yeah.
If Russian is the way to go, then we go. If tomorrow it's going to be anything else, look at the opportunities and look at the challenges and look at what is the best way out for you. I think for me, that is the recipe for
Absolutely.
success. Do not take somebody else's script and say, because it worked there, it's got to work for me.
Yeah.
Analyze. And I guess education does play a role.
Yeah.
But you see, even then, you do not need a college degree to be educated today. You can go online, ChatGPT can bring it to you.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
ask the questions, do the studies, don't just follow blindly.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking.
And because we've had to scale how many walls and survive, I almost think that that's ingrained in the people of the South.
Yeah.
So we should be. We are already, what did you say, how many carats of diamond, or did you not say?
6.
No, I thought more like 10, but be that as it may. The point of the matter is, pressure on the diamond is what creates the brilliance. The people of the South has had pressure from all over, and we still do. That shouldn't make us weaker. It should make us stronger.
We are sitting with dizzying youth unemployment numbers. How do we ensure that our youth are prepared for participation in this new BRICS environment?
My view is that instead of giving SASA grants, we should enroll our youth again. I'm not showing the same way that the Apartheid government enrolled the conscripts. You remember the conscript system where they were,
absolutely.
if you're 18, you have to go to the army, you have to go and defend your border against the Russians and the Cubans. And it's, So I'm thinking a youth corps program coupled to a re-socialization program. Remember, there was a social cohesion program like a decade ago, and it didn't work because it was not.
You're not talking about the EBWP program?
No.
Not that one.
No. I'm talking about I think when President Zuma was deputy president, he ran the social cohesion program.
cohesion.
Okay.
Because remember, we come from 13 countries in one country. White South Africa, Venda, Botswana, Kanga, Guane, all of them. And there was a need to build the nation. It's a national question. How do you build the nation? And that just fizzled out. But I think there needs to be hope, discipline, loyalty, and patriotism built in the youth to give them that extra push to climb these walls that we had to climb. I don't think there's any other way. You can get so much from China, so much from Russia, so much from the Middle East or the rest of Africa. But I think our human resource collective needs to be totally rethink. We need a total rethink around how we use our human. It's so sad. You open your, what is it now, X, called X?
Yes.
And then I have these statistics, and you're first there. Normally you were happy if you're first in the class, but you look at that first 60%, what is it, 70% youth unemployment, the highest in the world. And there are countries so much poorer than us, but they don't have this unemployment rates.
Jolene, I just want to add on to that. The conscription, I think, is certainly one thing we seriously must think about. But don't forget, in the Western Cape, there were two other elements. You had your best ambachtsman.
Yeah.
Artisans.
You had these schools.
Artisan schools.
Schools, yeah.
I mean,
they closed that. Yeah.
Yeah, the best
School of
electricians.
skills.
Yeah.
Electricians,
Yeah,
plumbers, builders.
Yeah.
You still, I mean, let's say it's overhard, but you still have the best of those children, youngsters who's been trained by the older people. So it's not to look down, apprenticeships. Those schools have got to be re-established.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the whole thing about our mothers and grandmothers who used to work in all those factories. Remember Fairweather and all those factories that were just shut down. What do we need to do to restart that? Then, of course, the big question is, what do we do with the young people who would look down their nose and say, but I don't want that, because I've seen on what are all these social platforms that the kids are, TikTok, that you've got to become
Influencer.
an influencer.
To make money.
Today, I would say one bread's money is better than no money at all. So influencers' lives are great, but can we start with, the question is, how do we get the youth back and employed? And conscription is certainly a way, and I do think that the apprenticeship program was great, as well as thinking about how do we restart those small factories to get our own things going. Because don't forget, in the US economy was restarted in the 70s, 80s by SMMEs. So why can't we do it here? What are the programs that must be put in place? What are the incentives that must be put in place to restart it, like we had in Atlantis? Don't forget.
I remember Atlantis. There was the colored homeland.
Correct, but Atlantis was given money to take those mechanical, what is it? ADE. To go close to those towns. It doesn't mean that everything that was done before was wrong. We need to restart some of what was even in the apartheid era. So restart it to kickstart this economy.
That's deep. Imagine places like Philippi and Manenberg.
But not only in the rural areas, there were some industrial developments in the rural areas. Because remember, the apartheid government also wanted to keep some people in the rural areas, and then the rest had to work in the mines and in the cities. So there was strong social engineering and spatial engineering. And I think, as much as that was against a certain population group, now we can implement that for the benefit of the majority, of everybody, instead of only for the minority. So you can use, they always say don't use the master's tools to defeat the master, but sometimes you can use some of the master's tools. Maybe you use only the hammer and leave the panga that side. But there is a way to learn from what people have done for themselves only, and what you can use from them for a larger family of beneficiaries.
I want to challenge you once again, Calvyn. Who are the masters now?
Mina, you, me.
Exactly. So guys, let's get with the program.
Yeah.
We can no longer
Yeah, we
be
must do it.
casting, we
Yeah.
are the masters.
Yeah,
The
we must do
destiny
it,
of
yeah.
our children are in
In
our
our
hands,
hands, yeah.
which is why this program, Jolene, is as significant as it is to get the word out there.
Absolutely.
But let's not look backward and say that, because yes, but I mean, we take what we know worked, the best of it, and we are the masters now. So let's use our positions
Yeah.
to make it happen.
And in the home, parents are masters. And we
Absolutely.
should
Yeah.
be encouraging multilingualism
Yeah.
in our kids
Yeah.
and in our youth to prepare them
Yeah.
for,
For the new world.
industry and global trade. Am I correct in saying, Calvyn, that the castle has got great potential to become a hub for exactly that, learning
Yeah.
about cultures, learning about BRICS trade, learning new languages?
Absolutely, because it would also offer some redemption for the institutions who served as oppressive forces in this castle. So you turn it around, like you
Yes.
said. Now we are the masters of our own destiny. So
That's
you
why we
can
are
now.
here, this
why-
room today.
and so we can turn it. So there are already elements of that to be built in. There's a local craft market every last Saturday of the month. Only local craft, not made in. Sorry, I don't understand
Yes,
it,
no, that's
but it's the, and so we look at partnerships to really turn this thing around. Mind you, because the Dutch were so scared of what is happening around them, both on sea, they were scared of the French, of the Spanish, of the Portuguese, of the French. They built this thing almost as a mall. So everything was, there was fuel in here, medicine, everything was,
Fresh
everything was,
water.
this was like a mall.
Yes.
I think the mall was built after this model. Primarily, it was a defense. Was a defense. It was a fort. A fort is a defensive thing, but it was absolutely through all its history was used as a multi-purpose center, just for humanity, just for living. And I think the masters, the two masters, must now turn it. 3 masters, 4 masters must turn it back, but for the benefit of a wider constituency.
We wish you the best with that, and you have our full support.
Thank you.
Right, Venete?
Absolutely, but of course, you can never ask me right, Venete, because I want to add something.
Come on now.
You remember what you said earlier, the significance of the time we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
And the fact that it looks like the trade flows, given what's happening up north,
Yeah.
is probably going to intensify around this around the Cape.
Already, these ships are, if you look over there.
I'm suggesting to you that the timing and the airing of this particular series, Joe, is so
Southern question.
significant. The Southern question. I think there are world leaders today who recognize this, the importance of getting the Southern question right and understood. In fact, as I speak, look at this, Joe.
You've got goosebumps.
Yes, but our timing is perfect, but we've got to utilize it properly now. And what that means, I don't know. But I don't think that comment and us being here today talking about this particular topic is just coincidental. There's something significant, and Joe, that's where you come in. You get to interpret it and to decide on who does what, how, and when. The time is now.
Profound, so profound. I can't thank you enough for being part of this first episode. I'm so excited for what the future holds for the Southern question, and thank you for confirming that the timing is perfect. We've settled on the fact that in the 17th century, language organized empire. In 1976, language ignited rebellion. Today, language still determines who has access to opportunities. So the question before us is quite simple and obvious. What languages do our children need in order to inherit the future? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.